24 True Unsettling Horror Street, Ori's Animated. It started with the smell, sweet, sickly, almost like rotting flowers, drifting from the edge of the woods behind Julia's aunt's farmhouse. At first, it was subtle, just a passing scent when the wind shifted, but by the third night, it was all she could smell. And with the scent came something else whispers, always right behind her, but no one there. Julia, a college student visiting her aunt for the summer, had always loved the quiet of Willow Creek, but something had shifted this season. Her dreams became vivid, filled with endless forests, and a figure standing motionless between the trees. Long black cloak, hood pulled forward, face twisted beyond recognition. It smiled wide and unnatural. One bony finger lifted to its cracked lips. Shh. She tried telling her friend Daniel, who lived nearby and worked at the local grocery store. He laughed it off at first. Julia was the imaginative one between them. But when he walked her home that night, and they both heard footsteps crunching behind them on the empty gravel road, then saw nothing when they turned, his face went pale. By the fifth day, the air around the house felt charged. Static prickled their skin even without wind. Julia's cousin, May, a high school senior with dyed pink hair and a sharp tongue, stayed in the guest room upstairs. She hadn't slept properly in 2 nights. "There's someone watching from the trees," she whispered over breakfast. "I saw them last night. They didn't blink." Daniel brought over his friend Thomas, a quiet type who didn't believe in ghosts, only logic. He checked the woods behind the house with a flashlight, scanned for tracks, and said it was probably a deer. But later, as the group sat on the porch, May screamed. Someone or something was standing at the edge of the tree line, just standing there. The tall, cloaked figure with the grotesque face. From that distance, they could see its grin. It lifted one finger. Shh. Julia couldn't move. Her heart pounded, but her limbs felt locked. Then the porch light flickered off, then on, then off again. When it returned, the figure was gone. No one dared speak. That night, Julia dreamed again. Except this time, she wasn't dreaming. She was standing barefoot in the forest. Cold air bit at her skin. The ground squelched under her feet. The cloaked figure was closer now. She could smell the sickly sweetness. She could see its face clearly. Its skin sagged, its grin impossibly wide, and its eyes no whites, no pupils, just darkness. "You've seen me," it whispered. "Now you belong." She woke up screaming. May and Daniel rushed in, only to find long, wet footprints leading from the window to Julia's bed, except the window was still locked. In the days that followed, the figure kept returning, standing closer, watching longer. Sometimes it was outside the window. Once, it was at the end of the hallway upstairs. Thomas stopped coming by. May refused to sleep alone. Daniel carried salt in his pocket, something his grandmother had taught him. They learned the locals called it the Mute, a name passed down in murmurs, usually avoided altogether. Stories spoke of a man long ago burned in silence, buried in shadow, who returned to claim the ones who noticed him. Not everyone saw him, only the curious, only the ones who dared to speak of him. That night, the porch light shattered. The trees bent inward toward the house. They heard breathing, heavy and slow, just outside the walls. May clutched Julia's arm. What does it want? But Julia already knew. It wanted silence. Shh. And as the figure stepped through the threshold, no door opened, no sound was made, only the smell, and the smile, and the dark. They say once you see the Mute, you can't unsee him. You can only wait, and wonder when he'll whisper next. The clock beside Julia's bed read 3:13 a.m. when the phone rang. The house was silent, wrapped in a heavy kind of darkness that pressed against the windows like fog. She sat up slowly, the sound slicing through the stillness like a warning. Her phone screen glowed softly in the pitch black. No caller ID. She hesitated, then answered. No voice came through, just breathing, slow, wet, drawn out. She didn't speak, couldn't. She knew that sound. It was the same breathing they had heard outside the house the night before. Her fingers tightened around the phone, then the breathing stopped. A faint whisper slipped through the line, stretched and distorted. Shh. The line went dead. Julia dropped the phone. Her breath came in shallow gasps. The silence in the room was too perfect, like the house itself was holding its breath. She got up, her bare feet hitting the cold wood floor. As she reached the hallway, she saw a light flicker under May's door. When she pushed it open, May was sitting upright in bed, eyes wide, staring at the window. She didn't turn as Julia entered. "He's outside again." Julia's chest tightened. She moved closer, slowly, and looked out. At first she saw nothing but the dense night. Then the trees shifted. There he was, the mute, closer than before. No longer at the edge of the woods, just beyond the backyard. His face, twisted and pale under the cloak, was turned directly toward them, a smile drawn too wide, as if cut into the skin. One finger raised. Shh. Julia pulled May back from the window. She didn't know why, but looking into those black eyes felt like falling into something endless. Daniel arrived minutes later, pounding on the door, face pale and soaked in sweat. He had gotten the same call, same time, 3:13 a.m., same breathing. They sat together in the living room, none of them speaking. Every sound felt magnified, the ticking of the clock, the soft creak of the old farmhouse. At exactly 4 a.m., the lights flickered again. The radio on the counter turned on by itself, just static. Then a voice whispered through the noise. "You saw me." The static cut off. The room fell into darkness again. The smell returned, sweet and rotten. May covered her face. Julia stood up, unable to sit still anymore. "I'm not waiting for him to come in." She moved to the back door. Daniel stopped her. But something changed in her eyes. Like she wasn't just afraid now, she was angry. She stepped outside, the screen door creaking behind her. The air felt heavy, unnatural. Not cold, but still chilling. The trees loomed closer than they should. Julia took 3 steps forward, and then she saw him, standing at the base of the largest pine, unmoving, taller than she remembered, his grin now reaching the very edges of his face. "Why us?" she whispered, her voice cracking. But the mute didn't answer. He tilted his head, raised a finger. "Shh." Behind her, May screamed. Daniel shouted her name, but Julia couldn't turn. She couldn't move. The figure took 1 step forward, then another. No sound. Just the rustle of dead leaves and that overwhelming scent. Sweet, wrong. Then suddenly, he stopped. His head turned slightly, as if hearing something distant. In a blink, he was gone. The space he had filled empty again, but the weight of his presence remained. Julia stumbled backward. Daniel caught her. They dragged her inside. The door slammed shut. All 3 collapsed to the floor, breathing hard. None of them spoke for a long time. When the sun rose, Willow Creek looked normal again. Birds chirped. The wind moved gently through the trees, but the house felt different, as if something had been let in that could never be pushed out. And at 3:13 a.m. the next night, the phone rang again. The silence on the line was worse this time. He didn't whisper. He didn't breathe. He waited, and they all knew he wasn't done. The mirrors in the house had started to behave strangely. It began subtly, a delay, a flicker. At first, Julia thought it was her mind playing tricks. The old bathroom mirror on the second floor seemed to hesitate when she moved. Her reflection lagged, blinked wrong, then smiled when she didn't. She stopped brushing her hair. Downstairs, Daniel taped newspaper over the hallway mirror. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. They had all seen it. May said she caught her own reflection watching her walk away, still standing in the frame. Then it moved. Not fast, just a slow step forward, as if testing something. On the 3rd night after the call, the air grew cold without warning. No wind, no storm, just a sudden, sharp drop. The temperature clung to their skin. Julia walked into the bathroom and saw the message written across the steamed mirror. "We see you." She scrubbed it away. It returned 30 minutes later. The same message, same letters. But this time, a fingerprint trail led from the sink up to the words, as if someone had reached out from behind the glass. She left the room and didn't go back. May refused to look at her phone camera. Every time she flipped it, something seemed to hover behind her. Something tall, thin, not fully formed, but the same shape each time. Daniel tried to laugh it off, but even he stopped taking photos. At 3:13 a.m., the phone rang again. No voice. This time, it wasn't breathing. It was a scraping sound. Something dragged across a rough surface, over and over. Then a soft knock. 3 taps, faint, like knuckles on glass. Then silence. Daniel answered on speaker. They all sat in the dark living room, the phone between them. Nothing. Then a voice, so quiet it barely registered. "Do you know which one of you let me in?" Julia looked at May. May looked at Daniel. No one spoke. The phone cut off. That night, Julia dreamed of mirrors, endless rows of them, but the reflections weren't hers. They were off. Their smiles came too early. Their eyes moved too late. And every version of her was watching something behind her that she could never see. She woke up gasping. Down the hall, the sound of breaking glass rang out. Daniel ran toward it. The bathroom mirror was shattered from the inside, not cracked, blown outward. Fragments on the floor, the sink, the hallway. A shape moved in the reflection of a shard. Julia saw it, just for a second. The cloak, the wide grin, the finger to his lips. Shh. He had found another way in. Daniel covered the mirror frame with cloth, nailed it shut. May burned sage, prayed, spoke words her grandmother taught her in Spanish, but the air still felt thick, watched. Julia stood in front of the mirror above the fireplace, the only one untouched. She stared, waited. Her reflection blinked, then smiled, and her own lips didn't move. She stepped back, heart pounding. The figure inside the glass stayed close to the surface, as if pushing forward. Its face blurred, then slowly sharpened. It wasn't her anymore. It was him, the mute, grinning, pale, one finger lifted. Shh. Daniel pulled her away. They wrapped the last mirror in a sheet, but it was too late. That night, Julia's reflection returned. In the window, in the water, in her shadow. It spoke in her voice. He's inside now. She didn't sleep. At 3:13 a.m., no phone rang. But in the bathroom, where the mirror had shattered, they found a message scratched into the tiles. "I like this house." In the silence that followed, they understood. He wasn't just visiting anymore. He had moved in. There was a door they never opened. It wasn't locked, but it stuck, swollen in the frame like the wood didn't want to give. For years, Julia thought it led to storage, old boxes, forgotten things. But after the mirror cracked, after the phone call stopped, she started to hear things from behind it. Whispers, sometimes low humming, a child's voice, maybe. Sometimes it sounded like her own voice, repeating a single word. "Let me out." Daniel refused to touch the knob. May claimed she never noticed the door until last week, even though it had been there since they moved in. When she stared too long, she said it looked like the wood breathed, like the grain shifted and pulsed in the corners of her vision. That morning, the air smelled like rain, though no clouds had formed. The hallway to the door seemed longer than it was. The floor dipped slightly, like the weight of the room beyond had changed everything around it. Julia tried again. This time, the knob turned. Not easily, but it moved. The door opened just an inch, enough for air to push out, cold and stale, like from a sealed crypt. They left it like that. By nightfall, the hallway light flickered every time someone walked past. Not random, not faulty wiring, every time. A click, a buzz, a hum, then dark. And just as quickly, the light came back. Once no one looked, May woke up to footsteps, not heavy, but barefoot, slow, dragging. She followed them down the hall and saw the door cracked wider. This time, 2 inches, enough to see the dark inside. The shape of a bed, a dresser, and something sitting on the bed, still, facing the door, just a silhouette. She turned the light on. It was gone. That morning, Daniel found the hallway longer than before. He measured it 3 times, then again with tape. It had gained 8 inches overnight. The wallpaper at the far end peeled, exposing dark, mold-like marks beneath, spreading out from the base of the sealed room. Julia's phone glitched again. Her screen flashed for half a second. Then an image appeared in her gallery, a photo she didn't take. It showed the room from the inside, an old bed frame, a chair, and the figure in black, head tilted, finger to lips. Shh. She deleted it. It came back. May suggested sealing the door. Daniel covered it with a bookshelf. It stayed that way for 3 days. Then they came home one evening and found the shelf pushed aside. Not fallen, not forced. Just moved carefully, quietly, as if someone inside had opened it from within. The door now stood wide open. They didn't speak, didn't go in. But something had changed. The house felt less like theirs. The walls carried sound wrong. Echoes came from places they hadn't stepped. Their reflections began reappearing in surfaces that weren't reflective. Julia saw herself staring back from the oven. May saw movement in the screen of a powered-off television. Daniel swore he saw his own shadow blink. That night, they heard music. An old lullaby, faint, twisting through the vents. It didn't match any melody they knew. Something out of tune, off-key, but familiar. Julia said it sounded like something her grandmother used to hum in her sleep when she was sick. May said the music came from the room. When they finally stepped inside, it was colder than they imagined. Not dusty, clean, unused, but preserved. The furniture was old, wood with carvings, some in shapes they couldn't name. There was a mirror nailed face down on the dresser. They turned it over. Their reflections were missing. Only the room behind them showed. They stepped back. The reflection stayed. Then, slowly, their own figures stepped in, late, dragged behind. And in the corner of the mirror, near the edge of the bed, the man in the cloak leaned forward, pale skin, wild smile. One finger lifted. Shh. The door slammed behind them. They rushed back, but the knob was gone. In its place, just smooth wall. From outside the room, May's voice called out, but she was inside with them. Daniel turned. So did Julia. And in the room's only window, they saw their house from the outside, as if they were no longer in it, as if someone else had taken their place. They weren't alone in the room. The silence wasn't quiet. It throbbed, like breathing, low and rhythmic, but not theirs. Julia stood still. Her hand grazed the dresser and came away cold. Dust clung to her skin, but the surface looked clean. The mirror still showed nothing but the room behind them. Their reflections didn't return. The window gave no light. The outside looked like their street, but drained of color. Motionless trees, a still sky. Shadows moved across the glass, but not from the sun. Daniel opened the closet. Inside were coats, not theirs. Styles from decades ago. Gray, frayed, buttons missing. Beneath them, a pair of shoes faced the wall, untouched, but warm to the touch. Like someone had just taken them off. May didn't speak. Her hands trembled, but she didn't notice. She stared at the mirror as if waiting for it to speak, and it did. Not sound, movement, a flicker in the far corner. A figure stepped into view. He didn't walk. He glided, long limbs, cloak dragging behind. That same awful smile spread wide beneath eyes that opened too far. His finger lifted again. Shh. The figure turned, walked through a door that didn't exist in their room, but in the reflection, it opened. Faint light spilled in, not warm, a dead blue. Cold enough to sting just by looking. Julia stepped closer. The mirror was no longer glass. It pulsed. The surface, soft like skin, stretched too tight. The moment her breath touched it, the door in the reflection opened wider. Daniel backed away, but the room didn't allow it. The walls bent inward, not fast, not loud, but undeniable. The shape of the room changed with each blink. They were being funneled. The ceiling bowed. The floor shifted. A hum rose from beneath the wood. It matched the tune they heard the night before, that lullaby, now clearer, sung in a voice that almost sounded like Julia's, but not quite, too smooth, too steady, like something that only knew how to mimic, not feel. Daniel pressed his hand against the wall. It felt soft, not plaster, not wood, flesh, breathing beneath his palm. He recoiled, and the wall sighed. May whispered something, repeating. Her mouth moved on its own. She didn't hear herself. She was still staring at the mirror. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but her expression stayed blank. Julia grabbed her, tried to pull her back. May didn't move, her feet rooted to the floor. She leaned forward, just a little, toward the mirror. Her reflection finally returned, but it smiled without her, wide, silent. Then it stepped back, vanishing into the room beyond the glass. May fell forward. The mirror swallowed her. Julia screamed, but the sound didn't echo. It vanished in her throat. The air turned heavier. The room dimmed. Daniel rushed to the mirror, but his hands met nothing. No barrier, just cold air. He saw May standing in the other room now, not moving, staring at them through the glass. But it wasn't May. Her skin had turned gray. Her mouth was stretched in that same too-wide grin. Her eyes didn't blink. The man stood behind her now, one hand on her shoulder, one finger raised. Shh. Julia turned to run. The door was gone. The dresser, the bed, everything behind them gone. Just four walls, mirror, window. And the mirror kept showing more than the room. A hallway behind the glass now. Familiar. Their house, but wrong. The pictures on the walls had no faces. The clock ticked backward. A faint laughter echoed from a room unseen. Then the man stepped closer. So did May. Their hands reached toward the mirror. Julia stumbled back. Daniel gripped her arm. But the room shifted again. A door appeared behind them. Not theirs. Old wood. A strange symbol carved into it. Deep grooves like claw marks, forming a circle crossed through by three jagged lines. It opened. No knob. Just opened. Daniel looked at her. She nodded. They stepped through. The room behind was the hallway of their home, but empty, silent, different. The light buzzed overhead. Their reflections followed in the glass frames, but they didn't move in sync. Julia turned. The door they'd come through was gone. In its place, a blank wall. They were home, or something wanted them to believe that. Behind them, faint on the glass, a smile appeared. Shh. The hallway didn't end. They walked for minutes that felt like hours. The walls never changed. Same frames, same flickering light. No doors. Just the sound of their footsteps and something else beneath it. Breathing. But it didn't come from them. Daniel touched the wall. It pulsed, once beneath his palm. A low hum crawled through his fingers. Then the surface rippled like water and stilled again. They kept walking. Julia held his arm, her steps unsteady. She glanced back once. The hallway behind them bent slightly now, curving like a tunnel, the walls closer together than before. They reached a turn. At the bend stood a figure, tall, still, The cloak dragged on the floor. The grin stretched wider now. His head tilted slightly, like he was listening to something none of them could hear. His finger lifted. Shh. They froze, then slowly stepped around him. He didn't move, but as they passed, the humming grew louder, almost like whispers overlapping. Too many voices, too fast to understand. A door appeared ahead, cracked open. Beyond it, light flickered, not warm, not cold, just there. They stepped inside. It was their living room. Same furniture, same window. Outside, the street was still. The sky stayed gray, no wind, no sound. But something was wrong. The clock moved, but not in rhythm. The second hand stopped, jerked back, moved forward again. Julia looked at Daniel. He saw it too. They weren't back. The house only looked like theirs. From the hallway came a sound. Bare feet on wood. Slow. Steady. The figure stepped in. Not through the door. Through the wall. Behind him, May followed. Her skin pale. Eyes wide. Her mouth opened, but she didn't speak. Instead, she reached for Julia. Julia backed away. Daniel pulled her aside. The mirror behind them lit up. Reflections returned, but they weren't right. Their doubles stared at them, smiling, blinking in perfect sync. Julia moved closer. The mirror flickered. She raised her hand. Her reflection stayed still, then moved before she did. It pressed against the glass, whispered, "You stayed too long." The glass broke inward, not shattered, opened. The reflection stepped out. It looked at Daniel, at Julia, then past them, toward the hallway. The figure nodded once, and stepped back. The reflection turned and walked out the front door. Outside, the wind picked up. The street moved again. Colors returned. The silence cracked. Julia blinked. Daniel stood at the door. It was raining now. The house behind them looked empty. They stepped outside, walked down the street, not speaking, not looking back. Inside, the lights dimmed. In the hallway, the figure watched, his grin fixed, his finger lifted. Shh. The end.